herons, night herons, and ibis at Mason Park. This is part 2 of a series of long-legged waders seen at Mason Regional Park. Part 1 had the 2 egrets and the great blue heron. Here another 4 species will be discussed: 2 night herons, the green heron, and the white-faced ibis. This is my 9th video on the natural history of Mason Regional Park, City of Irvine, Orange County, California, part of my Field Notes series. Here are the first 5 topics, and then the last 4, including this presentation. If you want to see new specific topics, tell me what subjects you want in the comments section. Here's a downloadable map showing Mason Park, especially the western part and the lake where my subjects were found. How many and how often are these herons, night herons, and ibis found at Mason? I can get a bar chart of those species on eBird. I'll put in the show notes any websites I use for this video, as well as put it on the bottom of the slides. So 9 species have been reported for long-legged waders. We'd already covered 3 of them. The American bittern on this bar chart was reported on a single checklist from November 1975. The species is more likely next door at San Joaquin Freshwater Marsh Reserve. The western cattle egret is a rarity, possibly will be seen at Mason again. So of the 4 species we will discuss here, the yellow-crowned night heron is the most uncommon. In fact, I believe the June bar graph sighting of the yellow-crowned on this bar chart is the one I submitted to eBird. Black-crowned night heron. Black-crowned night herons' plumage changes with their age. Here's a juvenile at Mason. I don't think they breed in the park. And another view of a juvenile on the Mason Bridge. Night herons appear as neckless, bulky birds, but they can extend their necks if wanted. And a subadult at Mason with an interesting plumage pattern. An adult with its usually stocky appearance and bull-necked posture. And a front view. Now I know you want to know why this individual is standing on one leg. Well, as most naturalists would tell you, if it lifted it, it would fall over. That's a standard reply. The real explanation is that it's for thermoregulation. The night herons roost during the day in the trees surrounding Mason Lake, pretty far up in some trees. A sidewalk beneath the roosting bird. That's why it's a good idea not to stand on the walkway where the white spots are. A look at the feeding behavior of the species from a 1976 paper by James Cushlin. They don't have many feeding strategies, only 7. And one instance where I filmed a prey species in the bill of one black-crowned. It caught me by surprise and I didn't have time to get a good focus on the event. Start that. Bullfrogs are an exotic species at Mason and considered an invasive species, but do provide food for a variety of predators. I've never seen an adult bullfrog at Mason except in the bill of cormorants, of a cormorant, a white pelican, or this night heron. The frog tadpoles I've seen in the bill of a grebe and Caspian tern. Yellow-crowned Night Heron. This nickname of Violet Night Queen is from New York City, according to AI. I don't recall using that term, and I'm a native New Yorker. The genus name translates in Greek as Queen of the Night, and it is slightly violet. Although I didn't see any juvenile yellow-crowned night herons, I show here a slide from my Coastal Southern California Birds YouTube video, the comparison between juveniles of each species. The yellow-crowned is on the left. Notice the difference between the bill shape, background color, and the pattern of white in the wings, to mention a few characteristics. Here's an adult. This species seems to show its neck more than its cousin, extending its neck, and has longer legs and upright posture. This bird is in adult plumage. And visiting the Mason Park Bridge, an obligatory photo for the series. A comparison between a snowy egret on the right and a yellow-crowned night heron. The species has even less feeding strategies than the black-crowned night heron, according to the review by Cushlan in 1976. It's usually associated with, now we're on green herons now, that's called the up the creek bird, and the green heron is usually associated with creeks, and often you catch sight of it when it flies away when flushed. That's why it's called the up the creek bird. This interesting heron looks here like it was left at the start of a race and forgot what it was doing. It walked slowly and purposefully. Here it was foraging along the concrete lake edge, leaning over to quickly catch prey in the water. Why is it called green when usually it doesn't look like that at all most of the time? So I asked AI. And I got the response that a green heron is called green for the glossy iridescent greenish-blue feathers on its back and wings, which can appear green, blue, or even bronze, depending on the light and angle, while its scientific name, virescence, also reflects this coloration. The green plumage is not always readily apparent, often appearing dark blue or black in poor lighting. Looking at the green heron that is looking at me. And a view of one hunting along the rocky shoreline. It sometimes can be seen with an extended neck. Here's a short video of the heron moving away from the camera. You can see it's on an alert posture. Here's the green heron's feeding behaviors. This is the heron species that can use bait to attract fish. I've never seen that behavior in the wild. And some video of it hunting under cloudy conditions early in the morning, wagging its tail. Herons have very rapid movement of the neck and head area when they're attacking prey, as you will see. You also see it fixating its eyes, going a little bit forward once it's down in the water. I don't know if it got anything on that approach. And one more try. White-faced Ibis. Remember, this is not a member of the heron family, but it is a long-legged wader at Mason Regional. Thus, I include it in this video. They often are seen in a flock of birds, not isolated like this individual. But why is it called a white-faced ibis? You don't see any white here. AI says that a white-faced ibis is called white-faced because during its breeding plumage, it displays a bright white band of feathers around its red facial skin, a distinguishing feature from the glossy ibis, a cousin of it. This white border, although it can be subtle, is characteristic of the species and gives it its name, even though the rest of the body is a dark chestnut or bronze color. And we're seeing it in September, and we don't expect to see the breeding plumage. Large flocks of ibis are seen at Mason starting in September and continuing through the winter. I counted from this video 83 of them within the area of the Mason lawn. An appropriate name for these large social ibis is a congregation. And probably a lot more in that group. I'm not sure what they are feeding on in this situation. Here's a close-up of their foraging technique. It looks like they have some sensory ability at the end of the bill to detect prey. They're probing deeply. Perhaps they're going for earthworms. I could not see, slowing down the motion, what they were feeding on. But it looks like they are successful next to the lake. And here's a close-up, and no, I haven't seen any posing on the Mason Bridge. So I hope you enjoyed this series on long-legged waders. This was part 2, herons, night herons, and ibis. Part 1, if you haven't seen part 1, it discusses with some interesting video the snowy egret and its feeding behavior, and then the great egret, and then the great blue heron. This has been another of my JDW talks. I have YouTube talks on genealogy topics, census, Ellis Island, immigration and naturalization, and about equal number, if not more, on natural history topics, virtual birding field trips, birding optics, including binoculars and spotting scopes, and the Nikon P1000 camera, California birds, Mason Park nature notes. Should note that most of the photography on this series was actually done with a Nikon B700 zoom camera. And then, of course, the Mason Park nature notes. And then I do have a few interesting, to me, YouTube videos. So if you want to find out about the next video, please subscribe to my channel. Enjoy the outdoors of Orange County, California.